and welcome to this short introduction to the QIB Cloud. I'm Adele Telati, part of the QIB Bioinformatics team. Before we start, I would like to remind you that we have a set of intranet pages that we manage. In particular, from the main page under Scientific Support, we'll find Bioinformatics Support. That's mainly a collection of links to other relevant pages. In particular, we have a knowledge base, Confluence. Confluence, you can search for information, tutorials, resources, and we have a specific section dedicated to the QIB Cloud where you can find how to configure your machines and how to access the service. So that's clearly a good place to start. If you have problems, we have a ticketing system called Jira. Both Confluence and Jira work with your usual NBI username and email. Of course, we are also present in the QIB Discord server. You can always reach out via email, but bioinformatics@quorum.ac.uk is not a regular email, it's rather an access point for the ticketing system, so no human person is actually checking those emails. It's part of the system. So what is the QIB Cloud? The QIB Cloud is an infrastructure that makes available for you Linux machines. So in order to make full use of the QIB Cloud, of course, you need to be able to use independently the Linux command line. If you already used Linux in the past, or if you use the HPC, you're ready to go. You need to be able not only to work with a terminal, but with a terminal that is connected to a remote server via SSH. So these are the prerequisites. But if you don't know these things yet, but you plan to learn them, this short introduction is still relevant because it will tell you what you can do afterwards. So the client-server model means that there is a machine somewhere, usually without keyboard or monitor, and via internet, you can connect to the machine and operate there. And there are many advantages. For example, when you close your laptop, the servers will stay active and keep working your managing your requests. So it's an efficient way to do bioinformatics analysis. Generally speaking, when there is a Linux server that you want to use, you need three things. First, the server address. That can be an IP address or a domain. Then you need to know the remote username, so the username that you have in that machine that sometimes can be different from what you have in your local machine, and some form of authentication. So in the past, it was very common to use passwords. But nowadays, it's believed to be not the most secure way to authenticate. So the alternative that the QIB Cloud implements is a key file. So you generate a very strong password file, and you generate a strong password file in your computer, and you use that file as a password. So this means that if you use another computer to log into the server, you need to have the key file as well and make a copy of it. So cloud servers really work as traditional servers. The only difference is that we have an infrastructure with a lot of physical machines, but you don't log into one of those machines specifically. They are orchestrated, and there is a system called OpenStack that allows us to create virtual machines using a fraction of the full capacity. And this means that you can create different servers for different needs. So you might use a lot of CPUs and RAM for a virtual machine that will allow you to assemble complex metagenomes, or you can make more smaller machines for easier tasks like assembly of isolates. Another advantage is that the operating system is installed on the fly. So when you create a new server, it's fresh. And if something goes really wrong, you can just create a new one. Of course, you need to carefully manage where your data is stored and what you need to keep. But in general, it's a new way of managing systems that is really useful, especially nowadays when software updates frequently, and managing a system shared by a lot of users like an HPC is really difficult. So let's go to how to use the QIB Cloud. When you have a virtual machine, you connect to it as you would do for any regular machine. So there is no difference in that. But the QIB Cloud system allows you to create the machine first. So you can connect to cloud.program.ac.uk, again, with your NBI authentication. And yes, you need the VPN to access the area. Then you will find a page like this where there are the existing virtual machines at the top with the IP addresses and flavor. So in this kind, every machine has 8 CPUs and 32 gigabytes of memory. And they have a name. You can click on Launch QIB Server, and you will see this interface opening where you can give the server a name to recognize it. You can select with this drop-down menu the flavor, so the kind of machine that you need. M1 Small is great to test and to learn Linux. And the server image. At the moment, mainly we have CentOS and Ubuntu, and I would probably recommend Ubuntu to start. And here you need to select your key file. This means that you can store key files in the interface and reuse the same key multiple times. But the first time you will need to select from the drop-down menu, make a new key file. This will result in opening this box where you can paste the public key. There is a detailed tutorial, but the point is the password is a very long file that is private and you don't need to share it with anyone. But and that's sort of the key, while the door lock is the public key, so the version that you can share with the server, and this is only used by the server to check that your key is valid. It's not the actual key. Finally, you click Launch Server, and this requires some time because the infrastructure will configure a new machine for you, will install the operating system, and finally will assign an IP address. And when you see that machine, you can log in via SSH. And again, remember that you need to know the address, that is the IP address, and also the username. In our system is the operating system name, so Ubuntu for Ubuntu and CentOS for CentOS. From the advanced interface, you can create new volumes. So you can create virtual hard drives that you can mount to your machine. And all the documentation for this is clearly explained in the Confluence documentation. So a couple of words about what kind of operating system you will find. It's a stripped down Ubuntu if you select Ubuntu. But there are a couple of things already installed for you. One is Miniconda, so you can easily Conda install something to add new tools. You are an administrator, so unlike the HPC, you can perform privileged tasks. For example, install packages from the Ubuntu repository with sudo apt install package name. This can be especially useful for some libraries required by the other packages. And Singularity is installed, so if you already run Singularity images, for example in the HPC, you can use the same images also in the QIB Cloud, and this is very convenient. Another very important topic that I will not cover here, but it's clearly described in Confluence, is that you can mount the HPC locations in the QIB Cloud. This is really important because the QIB Cloud is an instance that is volatile and can be destroyed. So you want to make sure that you can access the raw data and that you can also store the relevant outputs in a secure system. So you will need to install some packages to begin with, and then you can create a directory where you will mount the location that you need, and then there is a command where you need to use your NBI login, and that's it. You will be able to mount the location that you need to mount. In this case is transfer, and this is your home in the HPC, and here is one of the research groups. With this overview, you know where to create new machines and where to find information how to configure them. So thank you for your attention.